If you have written a book and you have reached that stage where you need to make that critical decision, do you do the traditional publishing route or the self-publishing route? Then this is the video for you. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about things to consider when making that crucial decision. But if you want to delve deeper and really think about the whole picture, then I would recommend you listen to my podcast episode about this very topic, the pros and cons of traditional versus self-publishing in 2025. I'm going to put a link to that podcast episode in the description here as well as at the end of the video. But in this kind of short video, I want to focus on just one thing, and that is cost. And I don't just mean money, but I also mean time. Like how much money is it going to cost you to publish traditionally versus publish self-publishing, and how much time is it going to cost if you go through traditional versus self. So let's get right down to it. Let's talk about money. Money is a hot topic today. I mean, you think about our current economy, you think about inflation, the housing market, how much is rent costing, transportation, and money is, a pretty serious thing for a lot of people. And that is definitely something you want to consider when you're thinking of publishing your book. How much does it actually cost out of pocket for you to do this? So let's break it down. If you decide to go through the traditional publishing route, the pros of doing that in regards to money is that they pay for everything. They pay for your book cover, they pay for your editors, they pay for everything involved, printing, everything involved in publishing your book. So out of pocket is nothing for you. And bonus, many publishing houses also offer an advance, which means you actually get cash up front before your book even comes out. And we'll talk more in my podcast episode about, how does that work. But in here, just know, hey, that's definitely a pro. Now, the con side of traditional publishing and money is to get to that contract, you might have to shell out a little bit of money out now. And what I mean by that is if you're planning to do the traditional route, then you're probably going to be querying agents to get representation, or at the very least, you're going to be querying directly to the publishers. Now, in doing that, most agents today in 2025 actually only accept queries through Query Tracker. And though Query Tracker is free, I would advise, if you're going to go that route, that you should probably invest in the premium subscription. It's not a lot. It's like $25 for the year. So not a hefty amount of money, but it is definitely worth that extra bit just to get their special features that they offer. In addition to that, you'll probably want to look into getting a subscription to Publishers Marketplace. And what I mean by that is Publishers Marketplace literally tells you daily what deals were made by what agents to what houses. And so if you find an agent that you really think looks perfect for you on paper, they represent your genre, you think you'd be a good match, I would advise, and this is just advice, to go to Publishers Marketplace and take a look at their track record. If that agent has not sold a book in the past 4 years, then you might want to consider, is that really going to be the fit that you want for an agent? Now, it's a little bit pricier because the subscription for it is $25 a month. The good news is, once you get your agent, you can cancel the subscription. But these are expenses that I would advise you to consider incurring if you are going to go through the traditional publishing route in order to find representation to take you to the publishing houses. Now, if you're doing the self-publishing route, the pros of that as far as cost goes are not much. Really, aside from the fact that you won't need Query Tracker or Publishers Marketplace, although you still might want them just to kind of keep track of things, but you don't have to invest in them. So I guess that is definitely a pro. But the cons definitely outweigh the pros in this, because you pay for everything. You pay for your cover. Now, before you get too far out of this, let me just kind of talk about Fiverr. I've had several author friends who are like, yeah, no, I've got my thing on Fiverr. And that's fine, and they do a great job. Only thing I would advise you to do if you're going to have your cover made through Fiverr is make sure that you own the copyright for the images that they use. Because a lot of these, not a lot, but some of the people on Fiverr are just picking images off the internet. They're not even bothering with copyright issues, and they're producing super cool covers, but you don't have permission to use those images. So what will happen, or could happen, I shouldn't say will, could happen, is that you publish your book and down the road it does really, really well, and whoever owns those copyrights sees their images, and now you are getting sued because you are the publisher. Obviously, you don't have that problem with a traditional publisher. So something to keep in mind if you're using Fiverr. Now, a way to get around that is to provide your graphic designer in Fiverr with the images you have copyrights to. So it could be pictures you take yourself, like go out during sunrise and take a really good picture. Or it could be images you get from something like Shutterstock, where you actually pay Shutterstock for permission to use those images for your book cover. And so either of those is fine, and then you can send those images to the cover designer and they can design it. So that's one way to do it. Or if you don't want to do any of that, you can actually go through and find pre-made covers. What these are covers that are used by multiple authors, but they customize it for you. So it'll be your title, your name, and then it'll be that pre-made cover. And those are usually generally cheaper, maybe $50, or you can probably even get it cheaper than that. But if you want something that really stands out, then you want to get a custom cover that's unique to your book, that is made specifically for you and your book. And those are definitely going to cost you more money out of pocket. So you're looking at, $300 or $400 upwards to $1,000 or even more. Look into that. They are unique to you. You definitely want whatever advantage you can have in standing out. Just remember that I think it's something like 6,000 books a day are added to Amazon. So you've got a lot of competition. These are definitely things to think about. In addition to your cover, you also have to pay for the editor. I would recommend getting an editor, a human editor for your book. Yes, you can use things like Grammarly or even Pro Writing Aid, and they are great for grammar, but there are things that a human can see that AI and their programs can't. If you're going back and forth between passive and active voice, they're not going to pick up on that because it's not grammatically incorrect, but it is a sign of amateur writing. And so then if you publish it that way, you're going to be published as appearing to be an amateur writer. And you want your self-published book to be the quality of a traditionally published book. So you're going to need to invest in, I would say at very least, a copy editor to help you out with that. And then there's things like ISBNs. I mean, there's things you have to consider that you have to pay for that a traditional publisher would be paying for. So that is a lot to consider, but let's now move on to time. How much, as far as time goes, does it cost you to publish through a traditional or publish self? So let's talk about traditional publishing first and time. What are the pros in time to publishing with a traditional publisher? The answer is pretty much none, really. I mean, maybe the fact that their in-house editor has a bunch of things to work on, so they're going to hurry up and try to get your edits as quick as possible. So maybe that's a pro. But other than that, no, time is not on your side. You need a lot of patience if you're thinking of going the traditional route. So to start with, you have to get that contract, which means you first have to start the querying agents or publishers, and that can take months. And then once you snag that agent, then that agent has to start pitching your book to the publishers. So that could take a little bit of time as well, months, a year even. And then once you secure that publishing contract, it is still going to be 1 to 2 years before that book is in print. So you're talking a lot of time. So be patient if that is the route you decide to go. It is a great route in many, many ways. Just know you're going to need to have a little bit of patience. Maybe you can finish books 2 and 3 while you're waiting. Now, on the other side, if you are self-publishing, the pros to that is time is on your side. It is all about you and whatever time frame you want it to be. So if you decide you want to have that book published, the publishing date be on your birthday, you can do that. If you want to have it out before Christmas, you can do that. The only time restraints you're going to have is how long is your cover designer going to take? How long is your editor going to take? How long is it going to take you to get your Library of Congress number? I mean, for that, I think the longest I've ever waited for my Library of Congress number is like 4 days. So the time is on your side. You get to see your book in your hands in a much, much shorter time frame. So if that is important to you, then definitely maybe put some weight on that. The other thing you have to wait for maybe is an author proof, right? You don't want to just put it out there without actually getting a physical copy of the book and looking through to make sure you didn't make any formatting errors. Remember, it's on you to do the formatting because you're self-publishing. So all of that is probably something you have to wait for. Now, that is a lot to think about. The cost as far as money and the cost as far as time. There are pros and cons for each of the two, so think about it. It is a very serious decision to make. If you want to learn more, like about getting your books into bookstores or ISBNs, or how much control do you really have over your cover, anything like that, please, please, please take a listen to my podcast episode. Again, I have the address or I will put a link to that podcast episode right here so you can just click on it and it'll take you straight there. And if you enjoyed this video, please, please, please consider subscribing to my channel. I do put out a new podcast episode about writing, book writing tips, and book publishing tips. I have that every Wednesday, so take a listen, subscribe, like the video. Please leave me some comments to let me know what else you would like to know about the book publishing process. And thank you so much for listening to this video.